Private member statements. I call the member for Swansea.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise here tonight to pay tribute to James Jim Taylor, OAM, a real Aussie hero who passed away last Saturday. Madam Speaker, being very much limited by time here tonight, I have sadly had to leave out much of the life and achievements of Jim Taylor, so here are just some of the highlights of a truly exceptional life. Soldier, sportsman, businessman, coal miner, administrator, author, husband, father, grandfather, friend. Jim's legacy is one of service, sacrifice and, most of all, unwavering commitment to his fellow man, commitment in a variety of fields. For those who knew Jim, it was clear he lived his life serving his community and his country. Jim left school at the age of 15 to take up an apprenticeship as a maintenance fitter. At the age of 18, he began his service to his country by joining the Citizens Military Forces, and then in 1962 the Regular Army. During his time in the Armed Forces, Jim served in the Malayan Emergency and also in Thailand from 1962 to 1964 inclusive. Before being posted to Malaya, Jim was recommended for officer training but declined this offer and chose instead to serve alongside his mates on the front line. From 1965 to 1969, Jim served with the Army Reserve. During his service in Malaya, Jim, who was a keen rugby union player, joined the Australian Army rugby team and played against the England and New Zealand Army teams. He later played rugby for Parramatta, and in 1967 Jim moved back to Swansea and played for Bullaroo 3rd grade, eventually taking on the captaincy of the side and leading them to premierships in 1968 and 1969. Jim would later be heavily involved in many aspects of the game of rugby, from refereeing 247 first-grade matches, plus finals, grand finals and international matches both in Australia and overseas, to holding a number of administrative positions with Bullaroo Rugby Club, New South Wales Rugby Referees Association, and was made a life member of Newcastle Referees Association in 1989. He was also the inaugural president of the Lake Macquarie Rugby Club. In 1968, Jim, like many others from Lake Macquarie, entered the mining industry. Jim later joined the Mine Rescue Squad and served 17 years in that team. During his time, he responded to some of the worst mining tragedies we have seen in the area. In 1978, he was a deputy in charge when the removal of coal pillars led to a roof collapse at the Wallara colliery. Sadly, Jim lost a work colleague that day after he and fellow rescuers laboured for hours in the rescue attempt. Over the years, Jim would have similar harrowing experiences. In 1979, Jim and the Mines Rescue Unit responded to an explosion at the West Wallsend colliery. Jim and his mates worked 12-hour shifts, sometimes up to their mouths in water, in an attempt to save the mine. In 1982, Burwood Colliery caught fire and the rescue squad once again responded. These fires were described as the fires of hell, with the squad working hundreds of feet below the ground, fighting a fire so fierce that the roar drowned out any other noise. The rescue squad laboured for days building brick walls to contain the inferno. Jim started his service with Swansea RSL Club in 1981, and for the next 25 years the club would be the second home. In 1987 he was elected president of the club, a position which he held until the day of his passing. Those associated with Swansea RSL Club then and now are of the belief that if it were not for Jim Taylor, the club would not have survived. In 1990, Jim could see the huge problems the club was experiencing. Many of the directors resigned, not wishing to be associated with the financial ruin that the club was facing. But Jim was not one to walk away. With the assistance of Alan Kellett, the district manager of the National Bank, the two worked together on a plan to rebuild the club's finances. Jim laughingly said that he remembers Alan flogging him day and night about all aspects of the operation, and you can still see the scars. It was through Alan and the club's auditors that Andrew Petroni was employed as the club's secretary-manager. Andrew and Jim worked side by side and both were proud to see the club flourish. Swansea RSL Club paid off its debts, renovated and built additions to the premises, constructed a memorial hall for the Swansea community and built a new war memorial. Swansea RSL Club was named Best Licensed Club in Lake Macquarie in 2002 and 2003 at the Lake Macquarie Business Awards. The club also sponsors Caves Beach Surf Lifesaving Club and supports several other Swansea community groups. The club's future looks bright because Jim Taylor did not walk away when many others did. Notwithstanding his many distractions, Jim was a proud and loving family man. He was a husband and father first and foremost and was heavily involved in his son's soccer teams. He found time to manage and coach teams from Swansea Junior Soccer Club from 1974 to 1982 He also took on the role of secretary of that club from 76 to 82. Jim was many things to many people throughout our community, but only Jim's family can know what he meant to them. My thoughts go out to those who Jim has left behind, to his mother Olive, his wife Bonnie, his sons Jimmy and Robbie and their families. I convey my condolences and those of this House. Rest in peace, Jim Taylor, great community man, bloody good bloke and bloody good mate. The next one's on me, Jimmy. Thank you.
In accordance with the standing and sessional orders, the House now